Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome to another Habitat speed build here on the channel. These are just one-off builds that we're doing. These aren't necessarily part of a zoo yet, at least. This is mainly because the zoo I'm building on the channel has a very specific theme, North American theme, sort of tiger slash tundra kind of thing, so grizzly bears, wolves, that kind of thing. But obviously that does limit us slightly with the animals we can use, so I think it's kind of fun to come in and just build these one-off ones here so we can see some of the awesome animals that are in the game. So if you're new here, make sure you click subscribe. Loads of awesome Planet Zoo content, if I do say so myself. Loads of fun content, at least. I'm having a hell of a lot of fun playing it. Today we're looking at red pandas. So these are gorgeous, one of the cutest animals in the game in my opinion. One thing that really made me want to have a go at these is because last week my wife came over and she was like, come on then, let me have a go at Planet Zoo. And I'll be honest with you, that is praise indeed, because she's not particularly a gamer. We played WoW together a little for a few years back, and she quite enjoyed that. And she'll always tell you that her favourite game is Crash Bandicoot. That's kind of the level that we're working with here. But every now and again, she will show interest in something I'm covering on the channel and want to have a little mess with it. So, set her up with Planet Zoo. Got to do the first tutorial level, the Goodwin Manor one. Got to work her way through that, and then threw into a sandbox mode. Showed her a couple of the shortcuts. And I said, right, there you go. And she built red pandas. And honestly, she did a pretty good job. I'll put a screenshot of it up. Yeah, not bad, huh? I was really quite impressed. She did some really nice rock work around the foliage, the foraging thing there, look. But yeah, anyway, and I just watching her play, kind of left her to it, but watching her play, I really enjoyed the red pandas. So I thought, well, let's have a go at red pandas then. So, did a little bit of reading up on them in zoos. They are endangered, unfortunately, as well, pretty much any animal is now these days, unfortunately. They are classed as endangered. Less than 10,000 of them in the wild. But they do quite well in zoos. They usually are in small group, like singles or pairs. Really, they're not really a sort of grouping animal. So you usually get one or two. So here we've got a breeding pair, male and female, and they're pretty much found exclusively in the Eastern Himalayas in real life. In real life, out of zoos. And so we wanted to try and get some of that sort of mountainous style build here. And I had a couple of sort of remits for myself building this one, and one of them was to really try something different with the terrain, because so far pretty much everything I've built has been pretty flat as far as the terrain goes. I've never been one for terrain in these games, to be honest with you. I don't deal very well with the sort of sculpting of them. I'm much better working with scenery and Lego pieces like we're doing here, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, terrain, I always find my terrain looks very bulbous. This can be easily seen, by the way, by looking at Nunakanata, which is our North American zoo. I had to go at building a cliff face there for the grizzly bear exhibit, and it looked awful. But luckily, the awesome Mike Sheets got in touch and was like, right, come on, let me have a go at that for you, because he is by trade works with plants and he's very good with sort of foliage and rock work and all that kind of stuff. So he's done an awesome job. The video has just gone live as I'm recording this. Actually, I've just watched it before recording it. He's done an incredible job on this rock work, so make sure you go and check that out. I'll put a link in the description to that. Like I say, I really wanted to sort of push myself here, so I've gone for a sort of mix between the two. So a little bit terrain, a little bit scenery, and we've done so using those retaining walls there, using the East Asian pillar pieces. Really happy with how it's turned out. It's different. It looks interesting. I genuinely think, honestly, I think I said this before about elephants, but I genuinely think this is the best thing I've done in the game so far. I really do. Every now and again, like, I have not very creative days, and I'll play some career mode or something, or even some of the exhibits I've done in the game. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I genuinely finished building this and sort of sat back and was like, that's pretty good, John T. And to be honest with you, that is not something I say. I get so many comments about people say this in comments all the time, like, stop putting yourself down, what you do is really good. But I honestly, I'm my own worst critic, always have been. And personally, for the most part, I actually think that's quite a good way to be. But yeah, maybe I'm a little bit too negative. But I genuinely did sit back and look at this and go, do you know what? I've done all right here. Luckily, the animals think so as well. It ends up with full welfare on the animals. Luckily, the red pandas are one of the animals that you can have as much foliage as you like, and I think that really helps make these exhibits just more realistic by just having really heavy foliage in them. Now obviously, you know, certain animals like savanna animals don't want so much foliage, but yeah, I love the animals where you can just really go to town with the foliage, which we will do later on. But let's talk about the building structures then. This is a little bit influenced by Silverette, and I'm sure if you're watching me, you know who Silverette is. Incredible, incredible planet creator, I suppose. He sort of is really known in the community for Planet Coaster work, and has been doing some awesome stuff in Planet Zoo as well. And he has this really great design methodology when he approaches a habitat in the game, and that is to try and make the animals' space as natural as possible, and then the guest space or the staff space to be closely related to the location of where the animal comes from. I probably haven't really described that very well. You should go and watch his videos if you haven't already. He talks about it much better than this. But that's something I really wanted to get across. So with the structures here, I didn't want to just kind of go for in-game East Asian, even though, you know, that's where they're from. It's the perfect fit for them. So, you know, those pagodas and stuff that the game provides would have been fine. But we kind of did those with the giant pandas already. And I wanted to sort of test myself here and really sort of try a specific style of architecture that isn't in the game. So with Nunu Kanata, we've been doing that with a lot of sort of log cabins and grand lodges and things like that. But I really wanted to sort of push myself here into trying something a little bit different. Wasn't going to be doing custom roofs though. I refuse to do custom roofs unless I have to. Don't mind detailing them like this using this lighter wood. But yeah, roof pieces, I'll use them if I can. I'm hoping this goes on the workshop as well, so it shouldn't be too taxing for you. It's not like we've got 7,000 different pieces of... I think Silverette's most recent one uses 7,000 beams of wood to make the roof. Yeah, even my decent PC would cry at that. So we're using non-custom roofs, but I'm really happy with how I detailed them to make them look like what I wanted them to look like, which is a very specific place, actually. It's not a style of architecture. It's actually a specific village in the Himalayas. It's located in northern India, and it's called Kasol, and it's an eco resort. It's one of these. It's kind of, I mean, it's something I don't really necessarily agree with. It's one of these like eco tourist places, you know, where people go along and pull up some weeds and think they're doing good and on their gap year and then clear off again. But it's one of those kind of places. But the architecture is really fascinating because it references sort of traditional Himalayan architecture, which use these really tall buildings that are on sort of almost pillars. Really, you can see we're working on the back here, and then they open out into a larger space. I think either the style or one of the most famous of these buildings is called the Devi Kamakan, and it's a very sort of traditional Himalayan build. And what they've done in this village, this Himalayan village that I've just closed the window to, there it is. What they've done in this village is kind of taken that art style, that sort of architecture style, and made it a little bit more modern. It still uses lots of natural materials, and it's still built in the traditional manner, so it uses dry brick and dry wood stacked up with no cement. They're just sort of built under weight, which is really quite impressive. And they have these gorgeous sort of open top buildings at the top. So here, this one is purely aesthetic. There's no like guests can't get up here or anything. Unfortunately, because of how the path system works, this would have to be 3 times the size if you wanted guests to get up there. So it's purely aesthetic, and it kind of works a little bit. There's a very slight bit of forced perspective here, although it wasn't something I was really aiming for. It definitely does kind of have that slight bit of forced perspective until you can't start putting foliage down, and then it kind of goes away a little bit. Forced perspective, if you don't know, is the idea that it's used a lot in movies, or at least used to be used a lot in movies, and it's used a lot in theme parks, where buildings sort of get smaller as they get higher to give an idea of a sort of perceived height. But actually, that's not necessarily forced perspective. Forced perspective can also work the other way as well, by making stuff look big or look small. But in this context, as in zoos and theme parks especially, the idea is that as a building gets higher, the details of it are built smaller to make it look even higher. So if you look at like Main Street in Disneyland, for instance, is the big example of this. The sort of the second and third stories of the buildings are really tiny, and you couldn't even get a human stood up in them. But because they sort of tier up, and obviously the castles do it quite well as well. The Disneyland castle not so much. The Disney World castle does it really well. So that as they go higher and higher, the building gets smaller and smaller, and it makes it look much more grandiose than it is. So there's a little bit of that here. Not particularly that I was trying to do that. I just ended up building this tower at a decent scale, so it does kind of sort of show that a little bit, but yeah, this again, I'm making notes to put links in the description, so I'll put a link down to an article regarding this village, like I say, that uses local materials. And apparently this style of architecture is from a group of people called the Pahari people, and it sort of uses a lot of, like I say, natural stone and natural wood, and these sort of tall buildings with sort of wide open tops, and then lots of lighter wood as well on the details of the roof I've used here, just to kind of really sort of make it pop. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. Now, as you can see, these beams going around the towers, these are again very much taken from the source material. The red pandas can climb up those beams, as it makes the total habitat completely unusable. So we have to actually go in and remove them from anywhere that the pandas can get to. And it is a little bit of a compromise, but I actually quite like it, and I've left it in because it's the kind of compromise that a zoo would have to make. You know, if a zoo was building these kind of architecturally accurate buildings, they would still have to kind of go, no, do you know what? We have animals in here and their welfare is priority. So yeah, those ones there, there you go, they're took out now, you can see. And then the tower at the back only has like the top 3 or 4 rows of them, and then anything below that has to come out. That was a really good shot there. I left that in purposely because I wanted you to see that tiered roofing, that tiered terrain, excuse me. Because the last sort of 2 things we do now are the climbing structure and the foliage. I'd be interested to hear, please, so comment below, what order do you do your stuff? Because I found myself very specific order of doing things. So I start with the barrier, I draw the barrier around. Now in this case I drew a massive barrier just so I could throw some red pandas in and figure out sizings, because I knew I wanted to keep this small. I wanted to keep this as small as it can. They have very small spaces in a lot of zoos and they're quite happy with it. As long as they can climb, they're quite happy with a smaller area. The one that comes to mind is Longleat. They have a red panda exhibit as you come off the boat ride, and it's tiny. Like the floor space is probably about as big as my living room, you know, like it is a small space, but it goes up. It's got lots of trees, it's got lots of climbing areas, and they're quite happy about it. Pretty much every red panda exhibit I looked at online had these little huts that they can go in, and I thought they were adorable. I built them. Unfortunately, in game they don't use them. The pathing of the animals is a little bit aggressive as far as where it can go, so they can't fit through small holes. I understand why. It means the animals aren't going to get stuck. So they don't use those, unfortunately. It is more for show there and just to kind of get that style of them across. One of the exhibits that I used a lot as a reference point is from the National Zoo, the Smithsonian National Zoo. There's a really gorgeous red panda exhibit there that has a sort of similar tiered terrain and also lots of misters as well to get that sort of Himalayan mist up that looks really good. So we add those in later on as well, and they look really good. There's really nice special effects in this game. I'd love to see some fire. I would love to have some fire special effects, not for the habitats of course, but for making sort of torches on the paths and stuff. That would be really good, but otherwise they're really nice. So here, placing down lots of climbing structures. As I was saying about the order I do things in, I always start with the barrier just to make sure the size is right, and I think they need something like 230 square feet floor space, so I made the exhibit about 290, because I knew that obviously this kind of climbing structures, planting, foliage, all that sort of stuff would bring that number down, but I really wanted to try and keep this as sort of closed in as I could. And it ends up being perfect. They have more than enough space for both. They have plenty climbing space and plenty floor space as well. So the biggest challenge I had here with the terrain and with the climbing structure is the keepers, and making sure that the keepers can get to where they need to get to. Because the problem is, for instance here, this climbing, the sort of left of the climbing structure here is very difficult for a keeper to get to. So if an animal goes and poops in it, the keepers are going to struggle to get to it. So you have to kind of make sure that the sort of floor space that the animals can get to, the keepers can get to. And I'd be really interested in hearing about some more of this from an actual zoo's point of view, and how much they have to make sure that exhibits are built with full functionality for keepers. But yeah, really had fun building the climbing structures here. Lots of different ideas with ropes coming down and stuff. They use a lot of it. I haven't seen them use, like the rope I haven't seen them use, even though I'm pretty sure it does class as climbable in the game. But yeah, they use a lot of it, and they kind of glitch out quite a bit, to be honest, and moonwalk and crawl upside down and stuff. But I mean, it really is an impressive system just to get them to be able to walk around man-made structure, player-made structure, excuse me. Here, that little bit that I've just built there, which is their shelter, they got boxed up every time they touched the top of it. Nowhere near the edge of the barrier, but every single time they went near it, they got boxed up. Whether it's because there's a bedding underneath it or what, I don't know, but all I had to do was go in and just slightly adjust that piece, literally just move it a millimeter, and they didn't get boxed up anymore. Really, I'd love for somebody to kind of do some real number work on that just to figure out what the problem is. But yeah, if you're having problems with climbing animals, especially, it seems to be getting boxed up all the time, just go and watch them, and after a few minutes I'm sure they'll get boxed up, and you can see the moment it happens where they are. Just have a go at changing around some of that climbing structure. It may well be that there's something in that AI pathing that they're struggling to figure out, and they'll just pop and go into a box. Here they're building the guest side of the exhibit, keeping the barriers pretty low here because obviously we've got the water there that the red pandas don't like. There's a few areas of this that maybe aren't the most realistic, like for instance those pillars in the water. I just love the idea of having them that they could come and jump onto and get a really good view of the people. They don't use them, I don't think, but just the idea of them. But to be honest with you, I do pull them away a little bit from the bridge because they're a bit close, but even where they end up, I think in real life they would probably be a little close. They've got a pretty good jump on them, red pandas. They can make a good little move. I love these East Asian stones. I'm using them so much. I love the texture on them, and I just think that trying to sort of keep the start. That's the cat's food bowl filling up. If you can hear that, we've got like an automatic one. Just to kind of keeping the style. So with the fact that we've used those East Asian bricks there to do retaining walls, we're bringing that down onto the bridge. Things like the roofing from the staff building, we're bringing that across onto the bridge. This sort of flow through of design that sort of follows all the way down the exhibit. I think it's turned out really quite well. Like I say, I'm really quite proud of this one. Definitely worth sort of taking a bit more time. It's really difficult. I know I spoke about this before. This is probably the only area that can do a bit of work. There's some really cute red panda statues that I wanted to get in here somewhere. So, but it's a little unfinished, this bit, to be honest. But the problem is I want to try and make this available on the workshop. So at some point you've got to end it. Then there's always going to be that sort of relatively abrupt end where it's up to you lot to fill in the detail, depending on where you place it in your zoo. But it's cute, whatever. It's a little fountain. What was I saying? Yeah, this sort of slight juxtaposition I have with trying to be creative and then also being a YouTuber and making a full-time living doing YouTube. There are other channels who don't make a full-time living, who are able to spend as long as they like on designs and scrap stuff and, put a video out every couple of weeks or something. And part of me really envies them because it would be so nice to just kind of, when you're done, go, I'm done for a bit, I'll have a break, But because I have made YouTube my living, which is fantastic, by the way, and it's the most incredible job, and it has really opened up lots of opportunities for me, and it's made my home life really healthy. Means I can have a lot of time at home with my son. There's so many positives, but unfortunately, if you really want to try and do this professionally, you've got to kind of churn a little bit. You've got to get that content out, which is where things like career mode and franchise mode come in for me, because we can kind of fill the gaps. But yeah, this exhibit has been built over 4 days, I think, and I think that's probably where I'm going to have to try and go with these kind of things, rather than try and sit down and say, right, this is what I need to do today, got to get it done. Just being able to have this and just pop in and out every few, like have an hour here, an hour there. I think it's kept the momentum much better. And I think it's made a really, really much better exhibit than some of the other stuff I've produced. Of course, it does help that the red pandas are gorgeous, and the habitats they require, this sort of East Asian temperate foliage is gorgeous, and it's some of my favourite foliage in the game, and the climbing structures and everything else. I just think it's turned out really, really nicely. We're actually going to jump very briefly into a live portion, because a lot of people are commenting saying that they would like a good look at the thing when it's done, and I think rather than just doing some like glamour shots like we've put at the beginning of this video, I think it might be better to come in and see like a real-time version of it as well, so you get a much better look of what's happening. So here I was come up to it then. Like I said, this is all sort of unfinished really, because this would be where the next part of the zoo is. So some rock work here, some like pathing, maybe some flower here would be good. We've got a full store here that goes into the keeper area. So we've got the keeper there, and then they sort of come into the actual exhibit itself. We'll do that in just a moment, but first of all, let's have a look at it from the guest points of view. So you can walk across here, and I think you've got a really great view, and I think this beam across the top here sort of really accentuates that idea of sort of forced perspective. That building looks a little bit further away than it actually is. Well, here we go. They're coming and chilling out. Where are you? Let's have a look. We've got one there chilling out on a beam. Here's the other one here. It's going to come for a little snuggle. They sometimes come over here and curl up. There we go. But I just love how full and busy it is, and how there's just planting everywhere. But like I say, the staff can get to pretty much everywhere they need to. Love this this mister as well. I had more of them originally, but it's maybe a little intense. Oh, that food's dirty. That's because I've got rid of the path here. There's no keeper able to get to them. Let's see if we can put a path in quick, because they're not going to be happy. There we go. Let's put a keeper down. We've got one, but I'm assuming they're too tired. Okay, so hopefully he or she will go in and clean up. But so if you look at where that is, for instance, that's the food there, and then that's food as well. So that's the full food if they need it. This is the enrichment food, I suppose. It's like a little termite mound. It's quite cute. And then the water is up here, but the water is a tap one, so the keeper doesn't have to get up to it. Okay, and basically that means all the keeper has to do, the keeper can get right down here, no problems, we've checked that. They can come up here. We had to add a slope in to get them up here, which again I don't mind actually, because I think it looks realistic, so that's fine. So there's a slope in that they can get to here, and they can get to here, pretty much is where they can stand, and they can even get up here, although it looks a little funky when they do it, but they can get up here as well. And from there, because there's so much foliage in all these other spots, so far they've been able to reach the poop. Here we go, dinner time. Here we go, get some fresh food in there. You gonna put any more down, or just that? Just that, okay. I do prefer it when they put some food out as well, but that's fine. They're gonna come and get it. They do a weird little thing. The pandas kind of jump around that. They won't go over it, but the keepers will, which is quite cute. I see there's a little bit of movements and stuff. And we've also got these awesome dandelion seeds floating around as well. Beautiful special effects. Well worth looking. A lot of people haven't really noticed them very much, but I think they're really nicely done. Hey, Noisy. Absolutely noisy little so-and-sos, aren't they? As they come and get some food. Look at them, they're adorable. But yeah, like I say, I'm really happy with how this has turned out. I just put some trees down for some screenshots, but basically this is here, hopefully, what's going on in the workshop. I've got to try and blueprint it, but the link will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Until the next one, be good.